It started with a rusted wristwatch. On the morning of August 3rd, 2023, Ranger Aidan Callahan was inspecting a defunct hiking trail near the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, outside Asheville, North Carolina. The area had been closed off for years due to landslides and was rarely visited, but a recent fire had exposed parts of the trail previously buried in brush and debris. As he climbed over a scorched tree trunk, Aidan noticed something partially buried in the dirt, a metallic glint. Brushing away the soot and soil, he uncovered a women's wristwatch, heavily corroded but unmistakably engraved. 2LJ. Keep climbing. Dad. The initials struck a familiar chord. 2 hours later, the watch was logged as evidence at the Buncombe County Sheriff's Department. A preliminary match was made. It belonged to Leah Jordan, a 26-year-old woman who disappeared without a trace in May 2015 during a solo hiking trip through the same region. Her case had gone cold for nearly 8 years. Detectives reopened the file. What had once been categorized as a presumed accident, possibly an animal encounter or a fatal fall, was now being reconsidered. The location where the watch was found was nowhere near Leah's planned route. Even more troubling, the band of the watch was snapped cleanly in a way that didn't suggest natural wear. Flashback to 2015. Leah Jordan was a public school science teacher from Chapel Hill. Fit, resourceful, and methodical. She had taken time off to grieve the recent death of her father, her closest family member, and decided on a 10-day hiking trip through the Blue Ridge backcountry. Her trail journal, later recovered from her apartment, detailed her route, from Mount Mitchell to the Craggy Gardens overlook. She never made it to the third night checkpoint. She was last seen at 10:46 a.m. on May 14th. Captured by a highway surveillance camera near mile marker 12, pulling off in her red Subaru Forester. That video, grainy and poorly lit, was the last known visual record of Leah Jordan. When she missed a call-in scheduled for May 15th, search crews were deployed. Over the next 6 weeks, more than 200 volunteers, drones, dogs, and helicopters scoured 80 square miles of rugged terrain. All they found were her boots, both neatly placed side by side at the edge of a shallow ravine, and an open protein bar wrapper. Theories abounded: disorientation, animal attack, voluntary disappearance. But without a body or any traceable movement past May 14th, the case stalled. In 2017, it was officially archived. Until now, when news of the watch's discovery was released to the press on August 5th, it stirred brief media interest, but no one expected what came next. That same evening, a woman walked barefoot into the emergency entrance of the McDowell County General Hospital. Dirt-caked, emaciated, and shivering under a blanket of pine needles, she gave her name, Leah Jordan. At first, the ER staff assumed mental confusion or identity delusion, but fingerprints confirmed the impossible. It was her, alive. 8 years later, the attending physician noted signs of severe malnutrition, old fractures in both wrists, and several healed abrasions across her upper back and ankles. A partial dental exam showed damage consistent with long-term exposure to cold and damp environments. Leah was alert, though quiet. Only after several hours of sedation and hydration did she begin to speak. And what she said ignited a storm. I was held in a cave by a man I never saw clearly. He kept me underground, I don't know for how long. The sheriff's office launched a second investigation, this time into her alleged captivity. Her testimony was fragmented, punctuated by confusion and gaps in memory. Leah described being dragged, blindfolded, to a cave she couldn't identify. She spoke of hearing water echoing in the distance, of days marked only by changes in smell and silence. Her captor never spoke. Food appeared once a day. Once, she claimed, she heard a second person crying, but it stopped abruptly and was never heard again. Initial forensic tests confirmed several biological markers consistent with cave exposure, mineral traces under her fingernails, cave-dwelling lichen in her hair. More significantly, fragments of rope fibers were embedded in her wrists, chemically linked to a brand of nylon discontinued in 2011. Detectives traced her possible escape route from the trailhead where the watch was found. GPS logs from fire response drones 2 weeks prior showed a small heat signature anomaly roughly 1.2 miles east, an area with collapsed shale and a known cavern system long thought inaccessible. When investigators rappelled into the largest opening, they found remnants, a rusted food can, a torn sleeping bag, and one other item: a disposable camera, water-damaged but intact. The film was rushed to a federal lab in Quantico. At the close of part one image emerges clearly from the developed negatives, a low-light, shaky photo showing a figure kneeling against a cave wall, eyes wide, looking directly at the lens. Her wrists appear bound. The timestamp reads Sep 11, 2017, over 2 years after she was declared dead. The photo was more than a clue. It was a confession from the past. Detective Sarah Mitchell stared at the blurry image projected on the interrogation room wall. The grainy figure knelt in the shadows of the cave, wrists bound, face gaunt, but unmistakably familiar. "That's her," Sarah whispered, a knot tightening in her stomach. Leah Jordan, alive in 2017, 8 years after her disappearance, the timeline shattered. Leah's story now demanded re-examination with fresh urgency. Sarah convened the reopened case file in the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office, where a small team of detectives and forensic specialists had been working around the clock. The watch, the cave evidence, and now the photograph formed a fragile thread through a labyrinth of unknowns. Leah's testimony was their guide, but a fragmented one. During her hospital stay, doctors and investigators gently coaxed her memory. She recounted the first days of her ordeal with difficulty. She was hiking alone when a shadow fell over her. The captor, a man, seized her by surprise. She never saw his face clearly, always obscured by darkness or a scarf, but she recalled his voice, calm and measured, with a southern drawl. From there, everything was hazy. She remembered being blindfolded, dragged through dense forest, then lowered into an underground cavern. The cave had a narrow entrance hidden behind a thick wall of briars and moss, nearly impossible to spot from the surface. Inside, it stretched deep into the earth, cold, damp, and echoing with distant dripping water. Leah described a small chamber where she was held. There was a makeshift fire pit, a stack of canned goods, and a crude mattress fashioned from torn blankets and leaves. Food and water were provided daily, but contact with the outside world was nil. She spoke of an oppressive silence, broken only by footsteps and occasional whispers. The longer she stayed, the more her sense of time disintegrated. 8 years, almost impossible to grasp. Detective Mitchell noted discrepancies in Leah's recollections. On some days, she was certain the captor left for hours. Other times, he seemed to remain nearby constantly. Her descriptions of the cave layout shifted between interviews, sometimes conflicting. She could not recall how she escaped, only that one day the blindfold was removed and she was led almost gently to the entrance. There, the captor left her, alone. She fled immediately, crawling through brush and undergrowth until she reached the trail where the watch was later found. The investigation pivoted to identifying the captor. Using Leah's voice description and the known geography, the team compiled a list of possible suspects. They cross-referenced local registries of offenders, focusing on individuals with prior convictions related to kidnapping or unlawful confinement. The most chilling lead was a man named Raymond Harlan, a reclusive woodsman living 15 miles from the cave site. Harlan had an extensive criminal history involving trespassing and assault, but no prior abductions. His cabin was situated near a network of caves that matched Lear's description. Surveillance was established around Harlan's property. Investigators discovered that he frequently traveled to and from Asheville, often carrying equipment consistent with spelunking gear. An arrest warrant was prepared for questioning. Meanwhile, forensic teams analyzed the rope fibers found on Lear. The nylon brand was discontinued nearly a decade before her disappearance, but remained in use by a local outdoor gear supplier. The shopkeeper remembered selling a large batch of the rope to a customer, matching Harlan's description. Lear's medical examination revealed old fractures consistent with being bound and dragged, supporting her captivity claims. Partial DNA evidence was recovered from the rope fragments, but inconclusive matches required further testing. The investigation expanded to search Harlan's cabin and surrounding caves. Despite obtaining a warrant, authorities found no direct evidence linking him to Lear's captivity. The cave system was vast, with multiple branches and underground chambers difficult to access. During a forensic sweep, a hidden alcove was uncovered deep inside one cave, containing remnants of a small campfire, discarded clothing fragments, and an old pair of women's hiking boots matching Lear's size. Neighbors reported seeing a stranger around Harlan's property during the summer of 2017, but descriptions were vague. A key witness, a local hunter, recounted hearing muffled cries late one evening, but was hesitant to come forward initially. Complicating matters, Harlan claimed no knowledge of Lear's disappearance or the cave in question. His alibi for the weeks in 2017 was murky, relying on sporadic work at a logging site and occasional stays with a cousin. There were no witnesses to verify his movements. Detectives uncovered inconsistencies in Harlan's statements. Phone records placed him near the cave on multiple occasions, coinciding with Lear's estimated captivity window. Further, a second woman was reported missing from the region in 2016, with similarities to Lear's case. Investigators wondered if more victims might have been involved, raising the specter of a serial offender. The local media picked up the story, fueling speculation and fear in Asheville and surrounding communities. The sheriff's office faced pressure to act swiftly, but the case's complexity demanded caution. Lear, meanwhile, struggled with trauma and fragmented memories. Therapy sessions revealed deep psychological scars, yet no clear answers. The newly discovered photograph remained a haunting symbol, proof that Lear was alive long after her disappearance, but silent on what horrors she endured. As Part 2 closes, the investigation hangs in a tense balance. A prime suspect with a shadowed past, tantalizing forensic clues pointing deeper underground, and Lear's fragile testimony, offering glimpses of survival and captivity. What really happened in those dark caves of the Blue Ridge, and who is the stranger who held her prisoner? The answers lie buried beneath layers of earth and decades of silence. The investigation into Lear's captivity entered its most precarious phase. Detective Sarah Mitchell and her team intensified their focus on Raymond Harlan. Despite his refusal to cooperate fully, small details began to unravel his story. Phone GPS data revealed repeated trips to a series of caves near his property over a period of 6 months in 2017, including dates that coincided with Lear's likely captivity. Cell tower pings showed his phone stationary near the cave system for hours at a time, contradicting his claim of being at the logging site. Forensic teams scoured Harlan's cabin again, uncovering a hidden cache beneath floorboards, a bundle of frayed ropes, tattered gloves, and an old walkie-talkie, matching descriptions Lear gave of her captor's tools. Analysis of the rope fibers linked them to those found on Lear's wrists. DNA swabs from the gloves returned partial profiles matching Harlan. Yet though the physical evidence was circumstantial, there were no fingerprints or blood linking Lear directly to the cabin. Harlan's defense lawyer argued that his client was an outdoorsman who frequented the caves and used the gear for his solitary explorations. Meanwhile, the discovery of a second missing woman, Julia Carter, who vanished in late 2016 under eerily similar circumstances, deepened the mystery. Julia's belongings were never found, but an anonymous tip placed her near the same cave system months before Leah's disappearance. The sheriff's office reopened Julia's file, drawing parallels between the cases. Both women were last seen hiking alone, both vanished without trace, and both had ties to outdoor activities in the Blue Ridge region. There was growing suspicion that the same captor might have been involved. Leah's recovery progressed slowly. Psychologists noted significant trauma-related amnesia, gaps in memory that made reconstructing her captivity difficult. She described being kept in near-total darkness, the absence of time markers, and the constant hum of dripping water. Fear and isolation dominated her experience. During a forensic interview, Leah recounted a fleeting glimpse of a man's tattoo, an intricate design of a serpent entwined with thorns on his forearm, seen when he adjusted her bindings. Investigators cross-referenced local criminal records for that unique description, but the trail went cold. The search expanded to include informants, with detectives appealing for community assistance. A local hiker came forward claiming to have seen a man matching Harlan's description near the cave entrances in 2017, carrying a large duffel bag. Others reported suspicious activity in the area, but had been too afraid to come forward. At the same time, a mysterious break occurred when the disposable camera found in the cave was fully processed. Among the deteriorated images was a sequence showing Leah in captivity, but one particular frame revealed a shadowy figure standing outside the cave entrance. A man wearing a wide-brimmed hat, his face obscured by darkness. Digital enhancement techniques attempted to clarify the figure, but yielded only a vague silhouette. Still, it was a critical piece of evidence, proof that Leah was watched, controlled, and held against her will. Detective Mitchell grew frustrated with the fragmented leads and mounting pressure. The local media sensationalized the story, sometimes muddying facts with speculation. Social media posts accused authorities of slow action, while conspiracy theories circulated online. Within the sheriff's office, tensions rose. Some deputies argued for a broader manhunt, suggesting that Harlan might have accomplices or that other victims remained undiscovered. Others cautioned against publicizing too much, fearing it might compromise the investigation. Leah's family, long resigned to grief, were thrown back into turmoil. They struggled to comprehend her ordeal, while grappling with the emotional toll of re-entry into society. Leah herself expressed conflicting emotions: relief, confusion, anger, and fear. Her most disturbing revelation came during a therapy session. She had overheard whispered conversations between her captor and an unseen visitor. Though she never saw this second person, their presence suggested a possible accomplice or witness. The investigation took a new direction as the team began searching for this second individual. A careful review of 2017 cell phone data in the region identified a previously overlooked phone signal intermittently present near the cave during the suspected captivity period. The owner of the phone was a local handyman, Michael Trent, with no known criminal history but a reputation for odd behavior and secrecy. When questioned, Trent denied any involvement or knowledge of Leah's disappearance. However, surveillance footage from a nearby gas station recorded Michael driving a white pickup truck late at night, near the area of the caves, during the time frame Leah was captive. The cumulative evidence, while still circumstantial, painted a grim picture. Leah may have been held by a small group, or at least observed and controlled by more than one person. As the investigation dug deeper, unexpected obstacles arose. A sudden fire destroyed part of the cave system, suspected to be an attempt to destroy evidence. Additionally, several witnesses withdrew statements or claimed memory lapses, complicating efforts to establish a clear timeline. Despite these setbacks, the team persisted. Forensic analysis continued on recovered items, and search teams expanded to adjoining cave networks. Leah's story, the forensic evidence, the witnesses, and the elusive suspects formed a tangled web of uncertainty, each piece raising more questions than answers. As Part 3 closes, the investigation reaches a critical juncture. Authorities prepare for confrontations with their prime suspects, while Leah confronts the demons of her captivity. The search for truth becomes a race against time and silence. What secrets remain buried in the shadows of the Blue Ridge Caves? And who will finally reveal the full story of Leah Jordan's 8-year ordeal? The climax of the investigation unfolded quietly but with profound weight. Detective Sarah Mitchell and her team, armed with mounting evidence, obtained arrest warrants for both Raymond Harlan and Michael Trent. In a coordinated effort, law enforcement officers surrounded their respective residences in the early hours of a cool October morning, ensuring minimal risk of evidence destruction or escape. Harlan, when taken into custody, maintained a stoic silence, neither confirming nor denying the accusations. His home was meticulously searched once more, revealing a hidden crawl space beneath the floorboards. Inside, investigators discovered old photographs, maps of the cave system, and several journal entries, some with cryptic references to the girl and keeping watch. Michael Trent, on the other hand, was visibly shaken during his arrest. His initial denials faltered when confronted with the gas station footage and cell phone records placing him near the caves. Under interrogation, he admitted to occasional visits to the caves, but insisted he never saw Leah or knew of her captivity. The prosecution faced challenges. Without direct eyewitnesses or confessions tying the men to Leah's abduction, much relied on circumstantial evidence, forensic links, and Leah's fragmented testimony. Psychological experts testified on Leah's trauma, underscoring her memory gaps and the difficulty in recounting continuous narratives after prolonged confinement. As the trial commenced, new complexities emerged. Defense attorneys argued the cave evidence could be coincidental, Harlan's known use of the area for recreation, and Trent's presence for legitimate reasons. They highlighted the lack of definitive proof that Leah was held at those sites or that their clients were involved. Leah's courage in testifying was remarkable. Her voice steady but restrained, she described moments of terror, loneliness, and the faint glimmers of hope that kept her alive. She identified Harlan tentatively by his voice and mannerisms, but admitted that darkness and time had blurred many details. The jury grappled with uncertainty, weighing the tangible against the intangible, the physical evidence against shattered memories. Outside the courtroom, the community watched, divided between relief at Leah's return and frustration over the slow march of justice. In the months following the verdict, questions lingered. Neither man was convicted of kidnapping due to insufficient evidence, but both faced lesser charges related to illegal possession of restricted materials and obstruction of justice. Leah returned to her family, beginning the painstaking process of healing. She chose a life away from public scrutiny, dedicating herself to advocacy for missing persons and survivors of captivity. The case of Leah Jordan remains a somber reminder of the limits of justice. Despite the discovery of the watch, the photograph, and partial evidence, the full story behind her disappearance and captivity is shrouded in silence. Her ordeal exposed gaps in search protocols, forensic technology, and community vigilance. It raised unsettling questions about those living in society's shadows, people capable of cruelty hidden in plain sight. As the Blue Ridge Mountains keep their secrets, Leah's return serves as both a beacon of survival and a testament to the enduring mystery of those lost and found between the cracks of time.